Hello everybody, and welcome to my Cambridge English Advanced, that's the C1 Advanced exam video course. In this lesson we're going to be focusing on the use of English paper, part 1. So, you're going to learn the best tips, technique and strategy to passing part 1 of the use of English paper. And we're also going to use some real practice examples to help us practice these tips and techniques along the way. But first, let's remind ourselves, how long is the reading and use of English paper in total? It lasts for 90 minutes. And how many parts are there? This paper has 8 different parts. But only parts 1 to 4 are use of English, while parts 5 to 8 are reading. How many questions are there in this part of the exam? In this paper, there are 56 questions, and 30 questions are use of English. The other 26 questions are reading. So only 30 questions are use of English, and only parts 1 to 4 are use of English. While you're practicing for the exam, I suggest that you do some real practice tests and time yourself, see how long it takes you to complete the use of English paper and how long it takes for you to complete the reading section of that paper, and see if one section takes you longer, then you maybe want to do this section after the other section. You should focus on the sections that you can complete more quickly and more easily first. So if you know you get better marks in part 2, focus on part 2 first, and then come back to part 1 after, for example. There's a quick tip for you. So, in the use of English paper, there are 4 different parts: multiple choice close, open close, word formation, and keyword transformations. And in this video lesson, we're going to be focusing on the best tips and technique for part 1 of the use of English paper. So part 1, multiple choice close. So how many questions are there in part 1? There are 8 questions. How many texts or passages do you need to read? Just 1. And how many options can you choose from? 4 different options. So there are 8 gaps in a text that looks like this. And below the text you'll have 8 questions with an A, B and C and D option for each question. And you have to choose which word fits in the gap best. A or B or C or D for each question. So it's time for my first tip. I suggest this to all my students. You should very quickly read the whole text. Why should you do this? Because it's really useful to know the context before you start answering the questions. It's really useful to do this. You should really have an understanding of the context before you start, because it will make it easier to answer the questions. And it helps you get the answers. Okay, so let's practice this. I would like you to open the Cambridge English Advanced Reading and Use of English Sample Paper 4, which you can access from this web address here. And if you type this web address into your internet browser, you will find a page which looks like this. What we need to do, this is an old exam sample paper, so it gives you instructions which are really useful to read through as well. But what we're going to do now is just to scroll down to page 2 and have a look at part 1. What I've done is I've just copied that into this slide here, but it might be easier to read it if you open it in your internet browser. So there are 2 questions that we need to answer. And I want you to try and do this in 1 minute in total. So about 30 seconds for each question. So you need to time yourself and try to just answer each question in 30 seconds. It's really just good practice to try and read through the text as quickly as possible. So the questions are, number 1, what device will be able to determine how a car driver is feeling? And number 2, according to the article, is everyone happy with these ideas? So pause this video now, time yourself 30 seconds for each question, and then when you're ready, press play. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. So let's have a look at the answers. For number 1, I wrote down GPS. And if we look at the document here, we can find this answer here in the document. Okay, so GPS. So what device will determine how a car driver is feeling? And GPS. And number 2, according to the article, is everyone happy with these ideas? No. The last paragraph suggests that some people will not be completely happy with the idea of being watched by technology. If we look at the last paragraph, we can see that that's what they're saying here. Okay, time for my next tip. This part often tests your knowledge of collocations. What are collocations, you might ask? That's a very good question. Collocations are 2 or 3 words in English that we put next to each other in a sentence. For example, we always say interested in English. We don't say interested on or interested with, but we say interested in. Or, I am interested in da da da. Rather than interested of, for example. Or interested on, interested with, etc. We always say interested in. So, what I'd like you to do now is to find the first gap. Then you should read the whole sentence before and after the gap. Identifying the key words and what type of words they are that are before and after the gap. Then you should look at options A, B, C and D and think which fits best with the surrounding words. Because this section tests how well you understand individual words, their specific meanings, and how we use them. So what you need to do is to make sure that your word fits with the words before. For example, if the word before is an article, then you know maybe you need to use an adjective if the word after the gap is a noun, or maybe you need to use a noun in the gap. So you really need to understand the different types of words that we have in English and how they work together. But not only this, you also need to have a good understanding of the specific meanings of specific words. And then to check not only that your word fits with the words, with the type of words that are surrounding it, see that you've chosen the correct type of word, but also check that the meaning of your word makes sense in the sentence. Because the 4 options often have very similar meanings, which can make it very tricky, this part. You have to decide which is best in the context and in the meaning of the sentence. Okay, and if you get a good course book, for example this one here, if you type this web address into your internet browser, in this coursebook there is loads of really useful and essential vocabulary and grammar that you need to know for the exam. So I really recommend buying this coursebook. Okay, but let's have a practice. So what I'd like you to do is to look at this passage here and to decide what you think is the answer to question number 1. Now this passage is just from here. I've just copied the first part of this passage from this web page. It might be easier for you to read it here. But what we need to think is, what is the answer? So which one is correct? A, B, C or D? And I'd like you to pause this video now and have a think which one you think is correct, depending on the words that are before the gap and the words that are after the gap, and also depending on the meaning of the individual words here. And when you're ready, press play and we'll have a look at this answer. Okay, so hopefully you've done that. And let's have a look at what I've written here. So, for the first gap, you need a verb which indicates that smartphones will be able to determine how we feel. So just looking at the question here, I can see that the word that goes in the gap needs to determine how we feel. It needs to be a word which says that determines how we feel. So we need another word which is similar to determine, based on intelligent thinking and related to feelings. So let's look at the 4 options again. Expose, perceive, guess and realize. And now let's look at their individual meanings. So A, expose, means, it's another way of saying uncover. And this word would be used more in the context of revealing something which is hidden. But we're not talking about revealing something which is hidden there. So that is not the correct answer. B means perceive, and perceive is something which shows the ability to notice something. Perceive is the ability to notice something. Guess means that no intelligence is required. And finally, D, realize, is usually used with facts rather than feelings. The word realize is usually used with facts rather than feelings. So which answer do we think is correct based on these meanings here? I think that B, perceive, is the correct answer. Because what this is saying is it's the ability to notice something, or the ability to determine something based on thinking, intelligent thinking, and related to feelings. So if we look again at the question, they will be able to determine or to perceive how we feel and react to our mood. Because perceive is the ability to notice something, which is exactly what we're talking about here, that these gadgets will be able to see how we feel and react to our mood. Okay. So, for homework, what you should do is you should follow the tips and technique that I've taught you in this lesson to complete part 1 of the Cambridge English Advanced Reading and Use of English Sample Paper 4, which again you can access if you type this web address into your internet browser. And also, once you've finished part 1 here, you can scroll to the bottom of the page, bottom of the document, and on the final page you'll see that there is an answer key, so you can check your answers here. And for number 1 it was B, and so we can check that. 1 here, B, perceive was the correct answer. So yeah, once you've finished the homework you can check your answers at the bottom of this document. But also you need to use the tips and technique in the same order that I've taught you to complete the Part 1 exercises in a course book. So get a good course book, and a course book that I recommend is this one. If you type this web address into your internet browser, you will find this course book. I use this course book with a lot of my students, and it's really good. It also has the essential vocabulary and grammar that you need, but it also has a lot of Part 1 exercises. So use the tips and techniques from this video lesson to complete the Part 1 exercises in this course book. Okay, and if you would like to book live lessons with me to practice this part of the exam, or another part of the exam, or English in general, what you should do is you should type in this web address into your internet browser and complete the form that you find at this web address, and then I will be in contact with you about individual or group lessons, depending on what you want. Okay, so thank you for watching, and in the next lesson we will be focusing on the Cambridge English Advanced or C1 Advanced Use of English Paper Part 2.